And welcome back, guys. So we're going to be starting off by closing these little floaty menu types that I've opened, because just like polygons, surfaces do have primitives that you can start off with. You will find them within the curves/surfaces tab in your shelf. And as you can see, we have a couple of curve generating tools that we can see here, as well as the primitive shapes from a sphere to a torus, just like in Maya. And then after that, we have a few tools and procedures that we can use to shape our NURBS surfaces. I'm going to be dropping in a sphere just to show you guys what the NURBS surface is composed of. I'm going to have this sphere here, and for prosperity's sake, I'm going to have this sphere here. And then I would also like to drop in a polygon sphere because I want to show you the differences between the two surface types. I'm going to enable wireframe on shading, which is this button here. And the first thing you should notice is that the NURBS surface seems to have less edges than the polygon shape, and they both have the same surface quality. But these lines aren't referred to as edges on a NURBS surface. These lines are isopalms. So if I go right click, you'll see I can go into isopalms, and then I'm able to select the isopalms, where on a polygon surface we need to go into edge mode, then we are able to select the edges. Another thing that you will find within the NURBS hotbox, if I right click, we have also the other options than you would traditionally have with a polygon surface. We have control vertex, which is short for CVs. So if I don't say control vertex after this, it's because it is a mouthful, and stating that the whole time is pretty taxing on the voice. So the short form that most people refer to them as are just CVs. So if I go into CVs, you will see we have a bunch of points that look like vertices within a polygon surface, but they act differently. As mentioned before in the previous session, NURBS surfaces use curves to generate a mathematically smooth surface. So if I grab this one CV and pull it out, you will see the NURBS surface will do its utmost best to keep a smooth transition in the surface. So if I go push that one down, you will see it will try its utmost best to always keep a smooth surface going. Now, of course, just like in polygon modeling, if you start putting these CVs closer to one another, you can land up producing a lot sharper edge. Yeah. Let me go find that CV that's inside here now. So just like in Maya, if you have at least 3 CVs together, just like 3 vertices or 3 edges, we can make sharper points and transitions that are a lot more crisp than the rest of the surface, as you can see. Let's go back to object mode. You also have a few other items within that hotbox. So if I go to the hole, which is something you can potentially use, as you can see, I can grab the hole and then use the hole to move a bunch of CVs at a time. Now, when you select a hole, say for example this whole point, it will select the entire row of points that is part of that hole, and then you would move the top section like so. Same if I go and grab this outside one, you will see it will grab the ones that are closest. I just move it in that way, you can see it goes like that. But this one, because it's in the center, it shoots through 2 different hole lines. It goes through the horizontal hole line as well as the vertical. If I go one up, you'll see it will only select the circumference. And if I go down here where I can select the very tiny ones, you'll see it again will only select the circumference of the hole. We don't tend to use the hole as much as any of the other options to edit the NURBS surface. We majorly use the control vertices and isopalms to add resolution and tweak the resolution that we have within our NURBS surfaces. Because with isopalms, you are able to grab an isopalm. As you can see, I can drag one out, and if I go shift right click, so with the isopalms we can go and drag a new one off an existing one. If we hold down shift, we can do multiples of additional isopalms. And if you go under the surfaces menu, there is an option here, insert isopalms, and then Maya will add in those ones that you wanted to add in to add additional resolution to this NURBS surface. So if I go control vertex, again, I've got points very close to one another. So just like in the rules of Polygon, as soon as the edges are closer to one another, the tighter the shapes can become. As you remember from this guy, because the two isopalms are very far away from each other, it determined the surface to bend in this manner. But here you can see the isopalms are pretty close, so the transition from one isopalm to another is a bit more sharp, because like I said, surfaces or NURBS surfaces will always try and keep the smoothest transition it can from one CV to the next, as well as from one isopalm to the next. Even by pulling something out like that, you can see it's trying its utmost best to keep a very smooth surface for us. So I can pull out some more, and then we can start playing around with this to produce additional shapes. Another key difference between isopalms and polygons is isopalms actually have a seam line, because isopalms is theoretically flat surface that gets bent and distorted into the shapes or the primitives that we see, and then there is a seam line where they connect. And you can normally see the indication of the seam line where there is a darker line or a darker isopalm from all the others. Now with this, a few little fun things you can do with NURBS surfaces. So if I go back into my inputs menu, and here where I made the NURBS curve, I can go play with start and end sweep. And as you can see, I can open it up and close it, because again, like I said, it is just a flat surface that was distorted and bent into a spherical shape. Again, yeah, you can play with its resolution, but those things you would do before adding isopalms like I did, because as you see, it kind of freaks out because it does not understand the isopalms that I added. So let's start off with a new sphere so that I can show you those settings. I'm going to make it a bit bigger, pull it a bit up. So now if I go to its creation node, I can play with the radius, so how big or small it is. We can play with the start and end sweep. Maybe we only need half a sphere. Let's go make it a full sphere. We also have the way it interprets the transition from one CV to the next, and as you can see, it's set to cubic. You have the option of linear, then so as soon as we put it to linear, you can see it generates straight isopalms from one CV to another. So it does look like a polygon, but it's nothing close to it. So let's go jump back into cubic, so we get our nice smooth surface. And then of course we have the option of playing with how many isopalms we want to start with, or play with the resolution of our starting sphere. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a lot more isopalms to play with, which also results into a lot more CVs we can play with. Now again, when it comes to surfaces or NURBS surfaces, whichever one you're gonna land up preferring to call these surface types, less is more. Okay, the less points you have, the smoother the surfaces will land up being. The problem with adding too much resolution too quickly is that the transition from one CV to the other will make your surface look a lot more jagged and not as smooth. And also, you're going to have the headache of needing to play with a lot more CVs to get into a smoother shape that you're trying to build. So I'm going to repeat that. So when it comes to NURBS surfaces, less is more, because you need to only tweak a few CVs to get an actual very big result. Just like in polygons, you start off with less and work your way up in resolution. You never ever jump to high resolutions, because that will always lead to headaches. Now that I've covered all the components that you find within a standard NURBS surface, I'm going to end the lesson here. In the next lesson, I'm going to go over the different curves we have access to that we can produce surfaces with. Catch you in the next lesson.